started a new position as a software development engineer at AWS. Okay, that is a good start to the story. Now I feel like I should tell people how I got here actually. Tell them the journey. Okay, let us go. So my journey starts in my second year at the University of Cape Town. That year, I'd made a massive commitment to myself to take this software engineering stuff more seriously. So while everyone was grinding assignments, learning about bit trees, trying to figure out how A-star search and all this complicated stuff works, I was building random projects, contributing to open source, and honestly, watching random system design videos that I barely understood. That was a very fun time, right? I remember even building this other automation tool that allowed me to request meal vouchers from my UCT res. And I remember I used to talk about it a lot. It gave me a lot of bragging rights. But it also got me into a bit of trouble because this thing was making network requests out of the most random of places. But that is a story for another day. So even though I was building all this cool stuff, right? I think it was cool for the time. I was not satisfied. I wanted real world corporate dev experience. So I was like, it's time to find a job. When I was about to go looking for internships and jobs and all this stuff, a friend of mine sent me a post stating that AWS was hiring for SDE interns. I was very elated and I applied. At the time, I knew a lot about Amazon as a company, right? Because FAANG was a big thing. Everyone wanted to work at FAANG. Everyone was talking about FAANG. The tech influencers were ex-FAANG employees. FAANG was what I think AI is right now. It was a big thing working at a FAANG company back then. However, I didn't know much about AWS, right? So I had to do a lot of digging into the company. So a week after applying, right, I got an email that I was accepted for a behavioral interview. For those who don't know, a behavioral interview simply assesses your current performance, and then recruiters use the data that they find from the interview to predict your future performance. And ultimately, what they're trying to do, right, they want to see if you will fit into the company's culture as well as grow with the culture. So at the time, I didn't know much about AWS's culture, right? So I had to do a lot of digging also. There's a lot that goes into a company's culture, but for AWS, right, at the time, what I took out of my research, right, is that the driving force, right, or the main driving factor that contributes to AWS's culture is this things called the leadership principles. And think of them as things that guide your everyday decision making, right? And there's a lot of this. I'm going to refer them to everything I'm saying in this video. Also, I'm going to refer in the comments. And also, right, for you guys, if you don't see the leadership principles within yourself, unfortunately, AWS is not a place for you, or even Amazon as a whole. They're not going to hire you if they don't see the leadership principles in you. So the interview came around, right? I was well prepared and then I passed. And then now it was time for the technical round, which, thinking back, it was not difficult, right? But the time at which my technical round was placed was, there was a lot going on. I was busy with exams. I was working on some music stuff. I had a lot going on during the time, right? So preparations were quite crazy. I didn't know about how the technical round went, so I went to YouTube, searched through Reddit, and they all led me to lead code. So I found myself grinding lead code for days, to solve all those problems that we love on lead code. I was on it. I was well prepared, right? And it was a very nice time also, even though I said it was a very hard time. It was a very nice time, right? Because in my course, we were also learning about data structures and algorithms and how to go about different stuff. And I was well prepared for the technical round, right? So for those who don't know, the technical round assesses your technical ability. So they want to see if you know your computer science fundamentals, software engineering fundamentals, and overall, like, they want to see how you go about problem solving using code and using different mechanisms, right? So building projects, and me learning about data structures and algorithms prepared me well for this. I entered into the interview, spoke to the interviewers, went through my questions. I had 2 of this round, so on each cases, right, I went through the problems real well. I explained my thoughts and everything. One I remember, right, was me building a hash mapped data structure, so ensuring that collisions are handled, all those things that happen in a hash map was basically doing them. And obviously there's a lot that goes into a hash map, so yeah, it was very interesting. And one thing I loved about the interviews, right, was the engineers themselves. So interacting with them, right, was so fascinating. These guys sold AWS to me. They were talking about all the projects, all the things that they were doing inside the company, and I was like, damn, that is so crazy. This is why FAANG is so big. I see myself, when they're talking to me about this, right, I saw myself in that position. I was like, yo, I really want to be working on A, B, and C. And now being on the inside, right, it's actually very interesting. These things are very cool. And I'm working with some of the guys who actually interviewed me. These guys are 10x engineers. So if you're watching this, shout out. So after the technical rounds, right, I passed them, as I explained earlier. I passed, and then I secured the internship, which was very good. Now I could focus on my studies instead of grinding lead code and all that stuff. So the months leading up to the internship, right, I got a bit nervous. I don't want to lie. Those guys who are on the tech influencers on YouTube, right, they sort of tell you that AWS is a crazy place. You need to know A, B, and C, or else you get fired and all stuff. And let me say that is a myth. It's not crazy. As I explain later, right, if you have the leadership principles within you, right, if you are curious a lot, you will handle all the complexity. You will ask all the dumb questions, some right questions, a lot of wrong questions. Everyone will direct you. So as a result of those negative, influence from the tech community, right, I panic bought a course trying to learn a lot of language frameworks, new languages, how to build APIs, blah 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 blah, which turned out to be a big waste of time, because once I entered AWS, right, they showed me everything. Like, they literally had me for 2 weeks learning the tools, the culture, and everything. And all those tools that I learned in the course that I panic bought were useless, because you can imagine, right, the scale of AWS. The tools that are used outside AWS are babies, in the sense that they don't even handle the scale that we go through. So everything at AWS is uniquely made for itself, which is quite crazy to think about. That is how big the company is. So in the internship, right, I was placed within a team where I worked with a bunch of applied scientists, actually, and a bunch of engineers. And yeah, the team was very interesting, right? So my project involved me. I cannot say the details, obviously, right? Because NDA. So my project involved me. Let me just make it so general. Actually, let me make it very general. I was building a testing framework for bin picking math model. Yeah, that is it. Yeah, that is it, actually. So this math model, right, or the testing framework was basically testing for regressions and ensuring observability of the math model. Math model itself was very complex. Like, it was PhD level math. I didn't know what was going on there. But throughout the internship, right, I asked the right questions. I showed curiosity, even though I didn't understand the math. I was very involved. I made a lot of mistakes, right, because this was my first real world gig, and yeah, even code wise, right? Code wise, I realized there's a big difference. Even open source, right, has a lot of dark arts to it. Code quality doesn't matter that much in some open source projects. I'm talking about you, FFmpeg, that video decoder. Oh my god, I cannot believe there's like, I think 3K lines last time I checked. So okay, I'm going to show you what I mean. I built a video player, guys. I looked through the code. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, like the way they go about code in the company is very different from open source and obviously my own projects, right? Obviously, I mean, like my own projects are very work. But yeah, I had to learn a lot of like code quality mechanism, a lot of code quality stuff, and how to go about software engineering in a very corporate way, right? Working with others, asking the right questions, all that stuff. Yeah, internship ended, and now I was in my third year, and I got the opportunity, right, to be on the AWS bursary, and the interview process for that was similar to an SDE intern role. So I was well prepared and basically aced it. So one of the requirements of this bursary was for me to do an internship at the end of the year, and I was like, another internship. So yeah. Which I'm grateful for, reflecting on it right now. So coming into the second internship, right, I was still working under the EC2 side of AWS, and I was working for a team that develops a lot of internal tools, and publicly, right, we own this service called IMDS that allows you to interact with your instance metadata. You guys can check it out. I'm going to be talking about it a lot because that is one of the services that you can see. In terms of the internal services that we build, right, they enable a lot of teams that build the tools that you guys love and build most of the APIs. So, for example, run instances and all this other stuff. We enable them, right, to do their job very well, which is very impactful. It's high visibility, and yeah, I love it a lot. So for the second internship, I was also building a testing framework, but this was for one of the, I cannot generalize this. Yeah, I think I can actually. Yeah. So I was basically building a testing framework that enabled us to verify whether we were getting the right console logs from different types of instances around the world, right? So this was for an internal console log tool. I think I can state it that way, which was very nice. There was a lot of ambiguity around that because you can imagine, right? Different types of instances, different they emit console logs differently, and yeah, that's a lot of use cases and scenarios that I had to take into consideration. But yeah, at the end of the internship, I was very satisfied. I don't know, I liked the challenge very much. And the team, I looked at the code when I came back. So the team went on to build on top of that foundation that I laid, right? They also peppered up their foundation, let me say that. I'm not the best engineer in the world, so the foundation still had a bit of cracks there and then the team pampered it up and built on top of each, which was very nice. So yeah, so the internship ended, right, and 2 weeks later I got an offer, a return offer, but I put it on the side because that year, I don't want to lie, 2025, I wanted to do doodle, guys. I just wanted to live my life, right? So I went on to doodle around the country. I ended up playing for different events, different artists around the country. It was very fun interacting with a lot of people, right, from various backgrounds, very diverse people. Also started a startup with a friend of mine, which was built on our project that we were working on. So we were building data mining tools that enabled farmers, right, to make better farming decisions. Sounds very simple to talk about, right? Because you're just mining data and then running some analytics on it. But yeah, there was just a lot going on in building all these models. Were focus on pests, right? Pests and plant diseases. So you can imagine computer vision, CNNs, all those crazy stuff we're doing. At the end of the year, right, we found out that there's a reason why people are still trying to innovate in this space, and no one has cracked the formula of how to go about data mining, especially for plant diseases and pests. Yeah, there's a lot of questions that are still on the table that I think research on its own still has to answers, right? So you PhD people, do your job. You researchers, we need those papers. But yeah, that was very fun. At the end of the year, I was like, yeah, let me go back to that offer that AWS had made for me, right? And I accepted, and now this year, right, I'm back full time. That's why I'm making this video. That's why making this video. Yeah, I am back full time. I'm working for the same team that I was working with during the internship. So I'm still under EC2. IMDS is still one of our public services that we are owning. So you guys should interact with it and tell me what you think of it, as it's obviously channels that you can put your thoughts on, but like, yeah, you can tell me. So that at least I tell my manager something, guys. It's really nice. Yeah. Back with the team, it's been very fun being back. I am challenged every day. I am learning every day. I still cannot believe that I am sitting with people that have been in the tech space, right, for as long as I've lived. I'm 22, by the way, if you cannot tell. So there's people who have been developing for 22 years, and I am soaking in all the knowledge that I'm taking in from them. I am rambling through my thoughts when explaining to people. I'm making mistakes there and there, but every day I live a very different person. Every week is just a different week, right? Because I am interacting with problems that I never thought of. There's challenges everywhere, which is why I love AWS, right? I got offers from other companies, obviously. Very cool companies, I don't want to lie. There's a company that was making drones, and yeah, as you can tell, I did a lot of drone stuff. They were making drones for the military and all stuff, but hey, the military is, I could say defense space is a crazy space to be in. I was like, yo, AWS is a very nice company to be in. So we build stuff for developers. The community around the developer community is very nice. I got to interact with it a bunch in 2025 and even in Cape Town. Yeah, it's very alive. It's very hard to, in Cape Town, the developer community is very hard to find, but it's very much alive. More alive than the one in Joburg. So, yeah. But yeah, guys, yeah, I feel like I've talked a lot in this video. But yeah, it's very fun to make these videos. And if you guys have ideas, right, of topics that I can talk about, blah, 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 and all stuff, tell me. I am back full time now. Thanks to my content buddy who was motivating me behind the scenes. But yeah, guys, I'm going to awkwardly close the video before I say anything else that will extend the video by 20 minutes. And also, I know a lot of you guys have brains the size of a squirrel, the attention span of a squirrel, so I have to cut the video right now.